Alright, so folks, this is module 15. We'll be working with the Azure Sentinel feature. Alright, so let's take a look. Azure Sentinel. Alright. So we're going to add the workspace, log analytic workspace, to the Azure Sentinel service. Now we're arrived at Azure Sentinel. The first step, connecting data. We got to feed data into this Azure Sentinel to be able to get custom rules to detect threats, perform analytics, raise incident, and make responses. When you click on the data connector, you're going to see that there are many data sources that can feed into the Sentinel workspace. And the Sentinel is a intelligence analysis against all these data. So I'm going to select Azure Active Directory. When you select the connector, you're going to find a quick description, and what does the connector come with? There'll be 4 workbooks, 2 queries, and 27 analytic rules templates. So click on Open Connector page. Alright. So in order to integrate with Azure Active Directory, you've got to have all of these, and you can see that these all have been checked. Alright. So perhaps I want to sign in and audit logs. Alright. So these are 27 analytic templates. Alright, so 2 sample queries. So let's take one of these. Alright, so if the log has been gathered and has been stored here, we'll be able to see the results from these sample logs. Alright, so for this lab, we'll connect another connector called the Azure Activity. Now, the Azure Activity will be monitoring each subscription that you have access to. So we'll select Azure Activity, Open Connector page. So I have 2 subscriptions, and I have 1 yet to connect. So I'm going to connect that. All right. So now the activity log will feed into the Sentinel workspace. When the data is available, you can run these sample queries to see some data. Now from those data in Azure Activity, these are the analytic templates. All right. So for instance, if there is a suspicious number of resource creation, we can use this to create a rule. And the rule can raise an incident. So for instance, this one is suspicious number of resource creation. And how is this going to impact, how it's going to affect your environment? So in this case, just perhaps cost you money. All right, so here, this is the query. All right, that detects excessive number of resource creation. All right, so this query is meant to find out how many create or update virtual machine activity or create deployment. So this is going to show you for the last 7 days how many times did this operation occur. All right, so we have a pretty small amount of these activities during normal operations. All right, so we're going to have it run the query every day. It can also be more frequent. And look up data from the last 7 days. Okay, so if I have more than 100 deployment, then something is probably wrong. And I'm going to configure that, group all the events into a single alert. Okay. Now, whether or not I should stop running this query, as long as the alert has been triggered, so there's no reason to keep on alerting. Alright, so here in the incident settings, we can have an incident automatically created when this alert is triggered. Now we can also group multiple occurrence of this alert every 5 hours into a single incident. So that way we don't get overwhelmed by the number of alerts. Alright, so 5 hours into a single incident. Okay. So rather than getting that repeated called every 5 hours, we can limit the group of alerts. Alright. Whether or not to reopen an incident that has matching criteria, so reactivating incidents rather than creating new ones. Alright. Now, whether or not you would like to have a playbook to automatically respond to this incident. In earlier section in the Azure Security Center, we could create a logic app to respond to it. Okay, so if we have a logic app can be assigned as the automated response. Alright, so at the moment doesn't look like I have any playbook defined, so I'm going to leave that. And this creates an alert, analytic rule. Once again, these queries come with the various data connectors. Okay. And this will help you, for example, suspicious granting of permission to an account. All right, and the information in order to establish these noteworthy conditions comes from Azure activity logs. All right. Now, as you go through this list, you'll see that there are many systems that work with the Azure Sentinel. All right, you can even connect that the Azure Security Center services into this Azure Sentinel. All right. And automatically create an incident from connected service. I can enable that too. All right. And some of these packages gives you a recommended workbook. So think of this as a customizable dashboard. All right. All right. So I'm going to save a copy of this workbook. Now, if the data for this workbook exists, this will run a query to show you the dashboard. Okay. Alright, so it just doesn't look like it has the necessary data for this. So I'm going to go back and I am going to use another data connector. Right. Now again, this connector comes with a workbook called Azure Activity. All right. And go ahead and save a copy. And view saved workbook. So when there is a available data, it usually takes some time for the data to come in. Okay, once the data is in, then you'll be able to see these workbook and charts related to Azure activities. Right. So as long as this query returns nothing, that means the data hasn't quite come in yet. All right. Now, task for this lab, we will try to create a playbook. All right. A playbook is nothing more than a logic app. A logic app is defined entirely in JSON. Okay. So if we want to deploy a copy of existing logic app, it's the same as we deploying an ARM template. Now in the Lab 15 folder, there is a ready-made logic app. Okay, so this logic app accepts the playbook. It defines the playbook name parameter and the user name parameter. All right, so let's go ahead and save that, and we'll need to provide those two parameters. When this custom template is deployed, we'll have a logic app. All right, so let's go to the resource we just created. All right, so if you don't see the resource, just click on the refresh, and after you click the refresh, you'll find the logic app right here. Now, typically a logic app contains connectors to different systems, and those connectors need to be authorized. All right. So here we'll select the tenant and authorize logic app to access the tenant information. All right, so here's a connection. All right, so after you squared away all the missing data, go ahead and click on save. Now your logic app is ready to go. All right, so recall in the previous exercise in the Azure Sentinels, we created a rule, but we didn't have any playbook to respond to it. So we're going to navigate back to the analytics. All right, so here I can see my playbook has been defined. All right, so we had the suspicious number of activities. I'm going to go ahead and click on edit. Go to automated response. Now, this is the logic app that gets triggered by Azure Sentinel alerts. All right. So we're going to go ahead and click on save. All right. So this is how you can have a logic app respond to an Azure Sentinel alert. So to recap, Sentinel has lots of data connectors, both deployed on-prem or in the cloud. Okay. across different vendors, different systems. All right. Each one of the connectors provides you with a set of workbooks, sample queries, and if there's any analytic templates. Now these analytic templates can be customized to trigger alerts. They can also create incident, which can later be viewed from the incident tab. Playbook can be associated with these analytics to automatically respond to these triggered events.